got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as the program will begin momentarily.
It's in the air, it's in my blood, it's rushing on. I don't need no reason, don't need control. I fly so high, no ceiling when I'm in my zone. Cause I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop, stop. Under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel a good, good creeping up on you, so just dance, dance, dance. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as the program will begin momentarily.
Please welcome President of Coppin State University, Anthony Jenkins.
Good afternoon, everyone. To all of our leaders, dignitaries, and esteemed guests, welcome to Coppin State University. I am Anthony Jenkins, and I have the pleasure of serving as president of this incredible institution. You know, today marks a great day on the campus of Coppin State, and on behalf of the entire Coppin State University community, to our Vice President, Kamala Harris, it is indeed a pleasure and an honor to have you on Baltimore's hometown university campus. You know, Coppin State is a university of distinction, home to a diverse, multicultural, multi-generational student population. who come from 35 different states, the District of Columbia, and 30 international countries. And they descend on our campus to learn from our nationally recognized programs in business, healthcare, social work, STEM, psychology, and teacher education. And in addition to providing our students a quality holistic education, Coppin has an unwavering commitment to West Baltimore. And as a leader in urban higher education, we are using our Center for Nanotechnology to focus on clean and renewable energy. And from that research, we are focused on finding solutions to climate issues that impact urban environments. And I want to thank some important people. State Senator Antonio Hayes and State Delegate Marlon Ampry. Because of their vision and their leadership and the support of our governor, Wes Moore, Coppin has been tapped. Coppin has been tapped to oversee the West North Avenue Development Authority, a project to revitalize a significant corridor of the city of Baltimore. And our work will be transformational, and we will always be finding and trying to address climate issues as we reinvigorate the West Side. So it is my honor to be here, and to Madam Vice President, I want to thank you for your leadership and your unwavering commitment to clean and renewable energy and for improving the lives of American families all across our great nation. And I deeply thank you for choosing Coppin State University as the backdrop to serve on the important message that you will deliver to us today. So again, thank you and welcome to Coppin State University.
Please welcome Comptroller of Maryland, Brooke Learman.
Hey guys. Hi everybody. Greetings, neighbors and friends. I am so thrilled to be at Coppin State University for this incredibly important announcement. I'm Brooke Learman, the 34th Comptroller of the state of Maryland and the first woman ever elected to this position. It is so good to be here with President Jenkins, Lieutenant Governor Miller, Mayor Scott, Congressman Mfume, Senator Van Hollen, and of course, our amazing Vice President, Kamala Harris. So we're so excited that Baltimore, Maryland was chosen as the site for today's announcement. Yes, we are. But it shouldn't be a surprise because Maryland has long been on the cutting edge of climate action. In our state, we know that climate change is real and it is the challenge of our lifetime. We don't get a second chance. We must get this right today. And thanks to leadership at the state and local levels and the partnership of our federal delegation and the Biden-Harris administration, Maryland is at the forefront of doing just that. Maryland was the first state in the nation to require a climate risk analysis of our $64 billion pension system investments. Just last year, I was proud to work with my colleagues in the Maryland General Assembly to pass the historic Climate Solutions Now Act, which increases Maryland's target for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Yes. Yes. And thanks to all of you who helped make it happen. We also, my other favorite bill last year was we passed legislation to plant 5 million trees in our small but mighty state over the next 8 years. Yes, native trees. And this year, our governor set an ambitious 2035 deadline for achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions across the state's economy, and I am so proud and honored to support that. Still, despite our best efforts, strong environmental health disparities remain in our state and all around the country. We know, you know, and I know, under-resourced communities are more likely to be exposed to poor water, poor air, and the like. Study after study shows that kids in those neighborhoods are at greater risk for environmental-related conditions like asthma and lead poisoning. They miss more days from school, they have lower earning potential, and tragically, shorter life expectancy. In order to turn that tide, we need leaders from every county in this state and every corner of our country to come together and to demand that clean technology and renewable energy projects reach our most disadvantaged communities. As comptroller, I am committed to placing climate resilience and environmental justice at the forefront of our state's financial decision-making. Yes. That means ensuring that our state considers the impact of climate change on our pension investments, and that we ensure we are spending money, when we're spending money through the Board of Public Works, we're spending in a climate smart and just way, building for the future, not the past. That is what sound spending looks like. But we can't do it alone. Financing has to be available to help individuals, small businesses, and nonprofits who are ready to take advantage of the opportunities presented in a new green economy. And that is why I'm so grateful for the leadership of our federal delegation and the Biden-Harris administration. They know that our communities are truly the tip of the spear in this fight. Right here in Maryland and in Baltimore, we are organized and we are ready for this type of investment. Yes. The Maryland Clean Energy Center has been helping to finance energy efficiency projects for 15 years. In fact, their capital program helped finance a $6.2 million facilities upgrade project right here at Coppin State University that is yielding annual energy cost savings of $600,000. And across the state, we have innovative green banks like the Montgomery County Green Bank and the Climate Access Fund right here in Baltimore that are working to bring solar into communities through innovative partnerships with schools, like their Solar for Us project at the Henderson Hopkins School in East Baltimore. And finally, yes, give them a hand, yes. Finally, our CDFIs and other community lenders across the state, they are ready to invest in these types of projects, but they need the capital and the technical assistance. So Maryland, yes, we have the organizational infrastructure to take full advantage of the federal resources that are being announced today. So it's on us. It is now on us as a community, a city, and a state to compete for these new resources to ensure that Maryland is at the top climate equity state in the nation. To close, I just want to remind all of us that climate change doesn't respect zip codes or state boundaries. But many communities will feel the impact in a greater way, and already are feeling the impact in a greater way because of systemic disinvestment. We aren't all in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. And you know and I know that we all do better when we all do better. Now is the time. It's the time for us to ensure that every community is building climate resilience and preparing for the future. I'm so proud today to work with Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller and to partner with our federal representatives and the President and Vice President to ensure that all Marylanders do better and are positioned to thrive and prosper in the green economy to come. Thank you, and let's get to it. Thanks, everyone.
Please welcome Baltimore, Maryland Mayor Brandon Scott.
Good afternoon, Baltimore. I am so happy to be here in West Baltimore at the Coppin State University. Thank you, President Jenkins, for being our gracious host and for your hospitality. I want to start by expressing my sincere thanks and excitement and to President Biden, Vice President Harris for their unwavering support and bold leadership on climate action. I'm also grateful for our Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, all of our federal partners, including the best congressional delegation the mayor could ask for, so thank you to them. But most importantly today, the supporters and advocates at every level who recognize the significance of this work and do it each and every day in Baltimore and across this country. My entire career as a former Baltimore City Council member and now as mayor, I've worked to move Baltimore forward to becoming a more sustainable and resilient city. The climate crisis is real, and it is here. If you had to stand outside, you know that to be true. And it will be one of the biggest challenges any of us will have to face. We must confront it at every single level and for every single person, especially for those who've been left behind historically. And we've made significant strides here in Baltimore. Nearly every single thing in our control at the city level, we're working on renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable transportation, and climate resiliency. Just a few weeks ago, we were even awarded the LEED Gold certification as a city, giving Baltimore a major stamp of approval on our sustainability efforts. But there's more work to do. We know that here in Baltimore, our historically disenfranchised Black and brown neighborhoods are those that felt and continue to feel the generational effects of the decisions made to limit their capacity and mobility in this city. Today, we are making sure that those very same communities are front and center as we bring Baltimore into the new, green, clean economic transformation. Not only are we confronting a great challenge right now, we all are facing an incredible opportunity, and we have a chance to commit ourselves to fight for environmental justice each and every day. I know that every single one of you in this room and everyone that you will hear from today is a powerful ally in that fight. And I won't rest until we make sure that Baltimore remains at the forefront. Welcome back to Baltimore, Vice President Harris. You know that you are welcome here anytime, and I look forward to reaching much, much higher heights in partnership together to protect our cities, our country, and our world. Thank you.
Please welcome Maryland Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller.
Well, good afternoon, Coppin State University. I'm Aruna Miller, Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, and on behalf of Governor Westmore and the Moore-Miller administration, I welcome each of you, Vice President Harris, Administrator Regan, and our federal, state, local elected leaders and partners. Governor Moore and I couldn't be more proud to welcome each of you to Maryland's largest city, Charm City, and to, of course, Coppin State University, one of Maryland's 4 premier HBCUs. And under the leadership of President Anthony Jenkins, we know our students, leaders of the future, are learning and thriving at Coppin State University. Go Eagles! Now, we've come together today because we recognize the existential threat that climate change poses through Maryland, across the nation, and around the globe. But we also recognize this is an opportunity to fight against climate change, address generations of inequalities, and bring relief and economic opportunity. The Moore-Miller administration is making Maryland a leader on climate while investing in our disadvantaged communities. We have set a goal to achieve 100% clean energy by 2035. reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 60% by 2031, and reach net zero emissions by 2045. Ensure all our new cars and trucks sold in Maryland are zero emissions by 2035, and to place equity at the forefront of our climate approach. Look, Governor Moore and I know these are ambitious goals, which is why we have a plan to meet them. Here's the thing. The transportation sector is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Maryland. And under the directive of Governor Moore, Maryland adopted the Advanced Clean Cars 2 standard to incentivize transportation electrification and greenhouse gas emission reductions. The Moore-Miller administration also passed landmark legislation that provides cost incentives for businesses to purchase electric medium and heavy-duty vehicles. Because while medium and heavy-duty vehicles account for 4% of vehicles on the road, they're responsible for 25% of the transportation sector's greenhouse gas emissions. And manufacturers like Volvo, which is based right here in Hagerstown, Maryland, are already producing and manufacturing these electric trucks. This is Made in Maryland, Sell in Maryland, Climate Revolution. We don't have to choose between a green economy and a growing economy. We can do both. This is a groundbreaking opportunity to create new businesses, to create new jobs, and to revitalize our communities by investing in clean energy future. And we know President Biden, Vice President Harris, and the Biden-Harris administration sees the same opportunity. Thank you to President Biden, who has outlined the boldest agenda on climate of any president, and to our federal climate champions who have helped to pass the largest climate action history legislation, including Senators Chris Van Hollen, Ed Markey, Tom Carver, and Congressman Pallone, and so many others who made this possible. The climate provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law are helping Maryland meet our climate goals, including climate equity. Governor Moore and I made a pledge to the people of Maryland to build an economy that leaves no one behind, a pledge to bring those who have been historically overlooked and underserved into the green economy by revitalizing our cities, driving investment and opportunity, and improving the lives of communities hit hardest by climate change, including right here in Baltimore, to move Maryland forward, to achieve its 100% clean energy goal by 2035. Governor Moore announced significant investment in offshore wind that will create 15,000 jobs. And these jobs are not just good-paying jobs, but they're also union jobs. And this investment will quadruple the amount of energy produced by offshore wind at Sparrows Point, right here in Baltimore. Because making Baltimore the heart of our state's response to the climate crisis is an economic opportunity for the future of our state. But it's also an opportunity to foster equity and justice as we move toward a cleaner future, because the solutions to the climate crisis involve all of us. And we can't leave anyone behind. And Maryland will be a state where we leave no one behind. Together we will build a future for generations that is cleaner and greener, and one that is filled with economic opportunities for all Marylanders. Thank you.
Where I want to take you. bed feels warmer, sleeping here alone. You know I dream in color and do the things I want. You think you got the best of me, think you've had the last laugh, bet you think that everything good is gone. Think you left me broken down, think that I'll come running back. Baby, you don't know me 'cause you're dead wrong. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. You heard that I was starting over with someone new. They told you I was moving on over you. You didn't think that I'd come back swinging. You tried to break me, but you see what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. Thanks to you, I got a new thing started. Thanks to you, I'm not the broken hearted. Thanks to you, I'm finally thinking about me. You know, in the end, the day you left was just my beginning. In the end, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes a fighter. Footsteps even lighter. Doesn't mean I'm over 'cause you're gone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, stronger. Just me, myself, and I. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stand a little taller. Doesn't mean I'm lonely when I'm alone. When I'm alone.
To keep my hands on myself. Pick out dust them off, put 'em back up on the shelf. Guess my little baby girl is in need. Am I coming out of left field? Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might be over now, but I feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now.
welcome New Jersey Congressman Frank Pallone.
Thank you so much. I guess I'm the designated member of the House of Representatives that's going to speak to you today. And then we have 3 senator colleagues that will follow me as part of what we call the pre-program. But I want to thank the Vice President and also the EPA Administrator for spearheading the launch of this historic new program today. Last week, as I think many of you know, was the hottest week on record in recorded history, starting with July 3rd and then July 4th even beat that as the hottest day. And I know that doesn't come as a surprise to many people because, you know, we've had historic wildfires and flooding and all kinds of natural disasters over the last few years that are strong indication, of course, that climate change is here and it's real and that this is a crisis that needs to be addressed. But thankfully, Democrats accomplished a lot towards building a clean future and addressing the climate crisis in the last Congress. Democrats were in the majority of the House of Representatives then. And we passed a number of historic bills. The one that we're focusing on today is the Inflation Reduction Act and the new Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that was included in the Inflation Reduction Act. Now that's what we're focusing on today. This Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund directs critical resources to our communities and resources that they can use to make our cities and towns more resilient, if you will, to climate change. And I was one of the people that fought hard in the House of Representatives to make sure that this was included as a tool and part of our toolbox, if you will, to address climate change and greenhouse gases. Now, what we need the reason we're doing this is because we have to equip our communities, particularly low-income and disadvantaged communities, what we call environmental justice communities, because historically they've been the ones that have been left behind and that have suffered the most from some of the problems related to environmental pollution and now also the changes in the climate that we need to address. And what we're announcing today basically are competitions, funding competitions, if you will, to use this money that comes from this greenhouse gas fund to promote what I'll call homegrown clean energy here in the United States, new technologies for clean technology, and also, you know, to whatever we can do to help achieve our climate goals. And it's a win-win across the board because these funding competitions not only help us deal with the climate crisis, but they also create new middle-class jobs, they lower energy costs, they boost American manufacturing, and they grow the economy. So again, I want to say that a lot of the focus is on low-income and disadvantaged communities because for far too long, these communities have carried the brunt of our pollution burden, and they shouldn't have to carry it anymore. A lot of this also relates to the Biden-Harris administration's Justice 40 initiative, which maybe some of you have heard about, and it contains a framework for dealing for the environmental aspect of that Justice 40 initiative. So the last thing I want to say is I really want to thank Vice President Harris and President Biden for moving quickly to get this critical program off the ground. You know, a lot of times we talk about the bureaucracy of the federal government. This is happening quickly, a lot more quickly than it has to under the legislation that we passed. And the last thing I'll say is we encourage all eligible organizations to apply for these funds right away. Let's get this money out. Let's get the dividends that are going to come from improving the health of our planet and our economy and delivering to American people across the country what's come forth from this initiative, again, from this administration, and you're going to hear more from the 3 senators that were also involved now, and ultimately from the Vice President and the EPA Administrator. Thank you again.
Please welcome Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey.
Wow, what a great day. It's hot outside, but inside, we're going to make Earth cool again. And that's what today is all about. So we thank everyone for joining us at this historic climate and justice announcement. To the greatest tiebreaker in congressional history, Vice President Kamala Harris, we are so honored. We are so honored to be here with you today, a champion for the frontline environmental justice communities most impacted by climate change. Thank you for bringing us together in support of this vital commitment, Madam Vice President. And what an all-star group of people here today. EPA Administrator Michael Regan, Senate Environmental and Public Works Chairman Tom Copper, House Energy and Commerce Ranking Member, you just heard from him, Frank Pallone, my great friend and partner on the Green Bank, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, Acting Director for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, Jahi Wise, he's out there. Coppin State University, that's where we should be. President Anthony Jenkins, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, Maryland Comptroller Brooke Learman, Maryland Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, and Bernice Miller Travis of We Act for Environmental Justice, and all of you who are part of this incredible revolution which is taking place, and to my own brilliant energy and environment and climate team who are in the audience today, with all due respect to my colleagues, I am proud to have the best staff on climate on the Hill. They're the ones that drafted the Green New Deal. They are the ones that have helped to create that movement that created the momentum that has created this moment. So we're here today because right now more than 100 million Americans are under heat alerts. Many are dying from extreme heat. July 4th was the hottest day ever in world history. And we're here today for our declaration of independence from the fossil fuel industries of the United States and across the planet. We're here because parts of western Massachusetts and Vermont and New York are underwater with 2 months worth of rain in just 2 days. The planet is running a fever. There are no emergency rooms for planets. We have to engage in the preventative care of our planet. That is what today is all about. So we're here. We're here because black and brown communities breathe dirtier air than white communities. Air pollution is between 10 and 15% above average in communities of color. This is our moment. The planet's on fire. Climate change is now climate chaos, and we have to act. In 2009, Chris Van Hollen and I included a climate finance fund in the Waxman-Markey bill that passed the House of Representatives and then died in the Senate. It took 14 more years, and it was an uphill fight, but we finally won when President Biden signed this bill last August. We passed the landmark Inflation Reduction Act, which includes $20 billion for a national climate bank, legislation that I wrote and introduced with Senator Van Hollen and with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from Michigan, and then partnering with Senator Tom Copper, the chairman of the committee, we were able to get this passed. You know, we've been told that the bill that passed last year by right-wing Republicans, climate deniers, by the fossil fuel industry, that this is socialism that we're doing. Well, what do you call 100 years of tax breaks for the oil, gas, and coal industry? You give us some of that socialism, and we'll be able to create a clean energy revolution for our country and for the planet. That's what we're talking about here today. We're going to be using a bank in order to accomplish that goal. 14 years was too long to get us here, but now we have a green light for a new era of green living. This $20 billion investment in a new national clean financing network will deliver more than just dollars. It will deliver good-paying union green jobs, solar rooftops that will power our homes without emptying our pockets, better, more energy-efficient housing that will keep us healthy and keep bills low at the same time. And we will work to ensure that this new, clean, green revolution does not lock out Black, brown, indigenous, immigrant, and low-income communities like the Industrial Revolution of the past. We are going to ensure that 40% of this funding at a minimum will go directly to communities of color, to disadvantaged communities in our country. So instead of the National Clean Financing Network, is going to build generational wealth in environmental justice communities and build a world where people don't just survive, they'll thrive for generations to come. From clean transit to healthy housing, we can bring life-changing projects to environmental justice and frontline communities around our country. We can center this morally, finally, for the industrial revolution of the 21st century, to make sure everyone is included, to make sure that this is a fund, this is a history that we can all be proud of. This is a day to celebrate. With this momentum at our backs, we cannot stop here. We must continue to deliver the resources we need to have a fighting chance to create a livable planet. I thank each and every one of you for everything that you have done. You have not agonized, you have organized to bring us here to this moment today. Congratulations, everyone here today.
Please welcome Delaware Senator Tom Carper.
Actually, I'm Ed Markey. That was Tom Carper. Wasn't he great? Wasn't he great? He and I came together to the U.S. House of Representatives a million years ago, bachelors, no wives, no children, ended up becoming best friends, travel the world together, and now have the opportunity to serve. And we are mistaken almost every day for one or the other. And usually I'm proud to be called Ed Markey. And today, if anyone wants to call me that, feel free to do that. I thank you all for thank you for caring about our planet. How many have ever met the Vice President? How many have ever met the Vice President? She was cast a tie-breaking vote in favor of the Inflation Reduction Act. She was the key. And after she had cast the tie-breaking vote, the place, and we won the vote. The Senate, which is usually a place with a lot of decorum, old people, and we walk around and with with canes and stuff like that, but the place was in pandemonium. I've never seen so much joy and happiness. People literally crying as we're there. And I walked up in front, Kamala was sitting where the presiding officer sits, and she was sitting up there, and all this pandemonium was going on. And I said to her, Madam President, and she said, yes, Senator Carper. And I said, this would not have happened without you. And she said, God bless you. She said, no, this would not have happened without you, Ed Markey. You can't make this stuff up. Later, in early hours of the morning, the daylight was coming, and I had spent the night in Washington. Usually I go home on the train at night. But I'd stayed down that night, and I got up and caught a 6 a.m. train to go home, and got off in Wilmington at Biden Station, and around 7:30. I didn't go home first. I thought I'd go get a cup of coffee, and I went to. Everyone ever heard of Wawa's? Wawa. Yeah. So I went to Wawa on my way home, and I went in, and it was like 7:30, 7:45, And the people were friendly. They said hello, and I got a small cup of coffee. And I went to pay for it, and the cashier said, Senator, I know where you've been. You've been up all night. I know about what you've been doing, and your money's no good here for a small cup of coffee. And I said, could I get a bigger cup of coffee? And she said, no. No, you're good for a small cup of coffee. And then you'll have to borrow some money from somebody. But she went on to say this on a more serious note. She said, I have a son and a daughter. I think they're like 11 and 13. She said, I have a son and a daughter. I want to make sure that they have a planet to grow up on and a planet to grow old on. Can you believe that? She said, I want to make sure they have a planet to grow up on and a planet to grow old on. Isn't that great? Says it all. And I said, I want to make sure that not only that, but when your children do grow up, they have a job that they can fill and jobs that they can go to and provide for themselves and for their families and contribute to this planet and keep us going for a whole lot longer. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Some people, I'll close with this thought. Some people think you can't do both. We can't save our planet. We can't make sure that it's here for the next generation and provide jobs, great jobs, and union jobs and others. But we can do both, and we must do both. I'll close with this. How many of you have ever taken Amtrak? Anybody ever taken Amtrak? Wow, that's good. How many have actually paid for taking Amtrak? I take the train almost every day back and forth, 4 days a week from Wilmington to D.C. And sometimes they have these like little signs on the trains or in the train stations, and it says something like this: if you see something, say something. Let's see. If you see something, say something. Yeah, I've sort of rewritten that. And what I say with respect to climate change and global warming, if you see something, do something. Let me hear you say, if you see something, do something. And what we've done with the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Inflation Act, what we've done with this climate bank that Eddie and Chris and others have worked on for years, we are doing something. We're doing something because we are those that 11 and 13-year-old son and daughter of the lady who works at Wawa. They're going to have a future and a bright future. They're going to have a planet that we can all be proud of. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you, Maryland. Thank you, Baltimore. Thank you, Maryland. It is great to look out at this room packed full of exciting people understanding the mission that we have here together. Let me just say to my friends at Coppin, go Eagles. It's wonderful to be back on campus, President Jenkins, and I'm really grateful to be joined by so many of our Maryland state and local officials. I know we have the Lieutenant Governor in the House, Lieutenant Governor Miller. Thank you for your steadfast leadership. I know that we have our Comptroller, Brooke Learman, in the House. And I know, and I just saw him a little bit earlier, we have our great Mayor of Baltimore, Mayor Scott. Where's Mayor Scott? And we also have a whole range of other state and local officials and activists and community leaders and all of you who have been working so hard to bring us to this day. I do want to bring greetings from some of my congressional colleagues who cannot be here today but wanted to be, including Congressman Mfume, who's been a great partner on so many things and for the city. And of course, Ben Cardin, who announced his plans to retire, but we've said, hold on, we got another 1.5 years to go. So I want to thank him as well. I do know that David Trone is in the audience, and I also want to say hello to any other members of Congress that I may have missed, but I think I have everybody. You know, we are here at Coppin. We're here at Coppin not only because Coppin is a first-rate HBCU that we're extremely proud of. We're also here at Coppin because Coppin is a great national example of the power behind the national plan that we're announcing today. And President Jenkins may have covered this a little bit earlier in his remarks, but when Coppin wanted to transform its university into a clean energy university with more energy efficiency, what they did was turn to the Maryland Clean Energy Capital Program for a loan. And the Maryland Clean Energy Capital Program gave Coppin a loan for 100% of the costs of transforming their campus to make it more energy efficient. So how do you get a 100% loan? Well, it's because the savings over time exceeded the value of that loan. Savings of up to $600,000 per year in energy costs to not just pay back that loan, but also do better. And that is a local Maryland and Baltimore example of exactly what this national program is all about, to take that idea to scale on a national level. So that's why I'm so pleased that we are joined here today from some of my colleagues in the United States Congress who've been working on this plan for a very long time. You heard just now from Tom Carper, Senator Carper from Delaware, who's the chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee that helps steer this piece of the Inflation Reduction Act through. You heard from my good friend Eddie Markey from Massachusetts, who I worked on this bill on when we were in the House, and we helped carry it over to the Senate. And you heard from Frank Pallone of New Jersey, who currently chairs the Energy Committee in the House. At least he did during the last Congress when we were able to pass this legislation. So I would just ask all of you, so they can hear you back there, please give them a big round of applause again. And we're here at Coppin on what is a very big day for all of America, and in fact for our worldwide efforts to confront the rising harm and the rising costs of climate change. All of you, I know, came from outside on this very, very hot day. Mother Earth is screaming because Mother Earth is being choked by carbon emissions. And the reality is we are at an emergency state already. We're in a crisis, and we need to act like it's a crisis. So we need to address this issue, and this is a big part of it. But with the challenge also comes incredible opportunities, and I want to stress that. We need to seize these opportunities to deploy clean energy in all of our communities across our entire country, because that will put people to work in good-paying jobs, and it will lower the costs of energy for all Americans, just like we lowered the costs of energy for Coppin. That is what this is all about, trying to steer off the harm, but also taking advantage of the great opportunity that these investments can bring for all of us and all our communities. Today's been a long time coming, and I don't mean just the 9 months from the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act to today. What I mean is 14 years. 14 years from the time I first introduced the bill to establish a national green bank when I was in the House of Representatives. That was in March 2009. We then worked with Ed Markey and with then Congressman Waxman, and they passed the Waxman-Markey bill out of the House that included this green bank provision in it. That bill did not pass in the United States Senate that year. So thanks to all of you and so many people in this room, we did not give up. We never gave in. We kept pushing because this is such an important effort. That bill called for establishing a a green bank with $10 billion in initial capital. We passed this legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, to establish a $20 billion fund. This is over the years, this idea has traveled under the idea of a national green bank, a clean energy accelerator, a national climate bank, which Senator Markey and I introduced in the Senate in the last Congress, and the way it was framed and established in the Inflation Reduction Act, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So when you hear those terms, these are all different versions of the same basic idea. And the idea is to make sure that we use the power and leverage of public and private investment to meet these important goals. And that is why today is so important. So today, we're going to hear an announcement about the guidelines that will govern the competition that we take to place to be and create a national network of these clean energy entities to work together to accomplish 3 goals. One goal is, of course, to hit our greenhouse gas reduction targets. And this part of the Inflation Reduction Act, this part of the climate change agenda, is calling for a significant piece of our goal toward reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's very important that we get it right. Second is to make sure, as our terrific Governor Wes Moore says, that as we do that, we leave no person and no community behind, because we need to make sure that every community is able to benefit from this clean energy transition, both to make sure that we are making the opportunities available, but also to be very deliberate about making sure the investments can flow to community lenders, and so that we can get these funds put to work in communities that have so often been overlooked and so often felt the brunt of the climate pollution and other forms of pollution, communities of color and low-income communities. So that is the second part of the goal. Greenhouse gas reductions, making sure that we leave no community behind, and this has to be self-sustaining. This is $20 billion. The idea is that we don't wake up a couple years from now and have this fund depleted. Just like Coppin, through its loan, repaid it through the savings, energy savings, cost savings, this is supposed to be a fund that will be self-sustaining and have a multiplier effect. Public seed capital, $20 billion, attracting private capital to have that multiplier effect so that it can really be national in scope. So those are the 3 goals of this whole piece of legislation. And as I wrap up, I just want to say thanks to so many people in this room. In fact, I suspect everybody in this room has been pushing for this kind of idea for a very long time to deal with the climate crisis, to create more job opportunities. I do want to especially thank some both local and state and national folks who've been in this since 2009, including the Coalition for Green Capital, people like Reed Hunt and Ken Berlin, and now Eli Hobson. At the state and local level, when we were unable to pass the bill in 2009, the National Green Bank, the idea didn't die. What happened was the idea traveled to local communities, counties, and states. And so now if you look around the country, you have a number of states that have their own green banks and own clean financing authorities. Here in Baltimore, we have the Climate Access Fund. In Montgomery County, Maryland, they were the first, almost the first, if not the first, county in the country to launch their own county green bank back around 2010. And I mentioned Maryland Clean Energy Capital that helped finance the Coppin project. I do want to thank Kathy Magruder and her team there for all the work they have done for many, many years. So that's on the clean energy financing. I also want to thank all the CDFIs. These are the folks at the community level that are making sure that we get the funds where they're needed. I chair the subcommittee that oversees the Small Business Administration and CDFIs, and I'm pleased to report that just this week we did even at a tough budget time, increase the budget for CDFIs at the federal level. So I do want to thank the MDIs and CDFIs. We have in Maryland, in Baltimore, I mentioned the Access Fund. We also have in Baltimore Community Lenders. I want to thank Watch and Bruce. I was just over with Washington and her team a little earlier. Senator Cardin and I were. Thank you for all the work that you do to make sure funds. I don't know if Harbor Bank's in the house, but I want to thank them. So many other community lenders and minority deposit institutions that are really putting dollars to work in our communities. I want to thank all of them. And to all of the activists who, from the time we were not able to get this bill across the finish line in 2009, to keep this idea alive until today, I want to thank you. And finally, but maybe really so importantly, we were not able to get this through Congress in 2009. It died in the Senate. And so we've had a long period of time when we've been waiting for partners in the White House who could get this over the finish line. And not just partners, but champions. So I just have to thank President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. A little louder so the Vice President can hear you back there. The Vice President and I were actually Senate classmates together. We were both elected in the class that came in 2017. It was a great honor to work with her on climate change issues from the very day she joined the United States Senate. And I'm so glad that she is now helping lead the way at the national level. I was so proud to join her when President Biden signed this program into law as part of the Inflation Reduction Act last September. That was a big day for the country. So thank you all. The next person I'm going to bring up here is going to be the person who's in charge of implementing this program. As all of you know, passing an important national law like this is a vital first step, but implementation is the key. We need to make sure that this is implemented and that we make sure we achieve those goals of greenhouse gas reductions, making sure we achieve our environmental justice goals, and we have self-sustaining funds. And I want to thank the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Michael Regan. And I want to thank him on behalf of myself and Ed Markey and my other colleagues, because he has been in close touch to make sure that as we unfold this and implement this, we achieve the vision that we set out for it all those years ago. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the man who is going to make sure that this vision that we all share is turned into reality on the ground. EPA Administrator Michael Regan.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, it's an honor to be here with all these champions, Congressman Pallone, Senator Markey, Senator Carper, Senator Van Hollen, and of course, Vice President Kamala Harris. Madam Vice President, I know you're listening behind stage, so let me just say, we are grateful for your leadership. You know, she's fighting to remove lead pipes all over this country. She is leading the charge on environmental justice. She is a fierce champion for women's rights, and our country is better off because of her leadership. Folks, it's really hot, so I hope everyone is staying safe. Just last week, this world experienced the hottest day recorded in history. And right now, right here in Baltimore, it's more than 90 degrees. And while we are experiencing this intense heat, in states like New York and Vermont, millions of people are grappling with the severe impacts of storms and catastrophic flooding. Folks, this is what climate change looks and feels like. I'm feeling it. You're feeling it. Our children are feeling it. Make no mistake, we are experiencing right now the realities of climate change. But make no mistake, when President Biden took office, he vowed to combat the climate crisis and protect every single person in this country, regardless of the color of their skin, the money in their pockets, or the community that they live in. And guess what? He's delivering. He and the vice president fought tooth and nail to secure the most ambitious climate legislation in our nation's history. Yes. A once-in-a-generation investment in America. And as a result, EPA is putting to work over $41 billion, billion with a B, in all the right places. And one of the most innovative and exciting parts of that $41 billion is the historic Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This $27 billion program is designed to pull hundreds of billions of dollars of private capital off the sidelines to address climate change head-on, reinforce our country's economic competitiveness, and directly invest in communities that have been marginalized for far too long. Now, last month in Vermont, we announced a $7 billion Solar for All program that will unlock opportunities for overburdened communities to deploy and benefit from clean, affordable residential solar. And today, I am proud to announce that with the remaining $20 billion, we are spurring the creation of a first-of-its-kind national financing network to ensure that every community in this country has access to low-cost, clean energy and technology solutions that will put money back into people's pockets. A $14 billion National Clean Investment Fund to provide grants to national nonprofits for financing that will partner also with private sector partners to help fund tens of thousands of clean energy technology projects all around the country, with 40% of the capital flowing directly to low-income and disadvantaged communities under President Biden's Environmental Justice, or Justice 40 initiative. And working alongside of that $14 billion, we have another $6 billion for Clean Communities investments to deliver funding to hundreds of lenders to low-income and disadvantaged communities, making sure that no matter where you live, you have access to pollution-reducing and cost-saving technologies. So what does that mean? It means when Crystal Hansley of We Solar, a minority-owned, woman-owned, small business right here in Baltimore, when she wants to put solar on the rooftops of churches and schools in the community that she is from, she will have access to low-cost loans that are essential for making those projects a reality. This is real money for real people. And every dollar we invest in public funding, we know will generate much more in private investment. When President Biden took office, he promised that he would create an economy that works for everyone. And that's exactly what this program is doing. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is Bidenomics in action. It's tackling the climate crisis head on. It's creating millions of good-paying jobs. It's supercharging private investment in clean technologies, and it's delivering health and financial benefits to communities nationwide. Folks, the clean energy future is here. And we're making sure that every community across this country has a fair chance. And as I stand here today, I could not be more optimistic about the future of America because of the leadership of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So folks, the money's gonna start flowing. Let's get to work.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you come home. Just a little bit, baby, just a little bit. Hello, just a little bit, mister, just a little bit. I ain't gonna do you wrong while you're gone. Ain't gonna do you wrong, 'cause I don't wanna. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you come home. Just a little bit, baby, just a little bit. Hello, just a little bit, just a little bit. I'm out to give you all my money, and all I'm asking in return, honey, is to give me my breakfast when you get home. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Ooh, your kisses, sweeter than honey. And guess what? So is my money. All I want you to do for me is give it to me when you get home. Yeah, baby, whip it to me. Just get home now, just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, T-F-T-C-T. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, little respect. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me. Ooh, yeah, little respect, just a little bit. I'll get tired, just a little bit. Keep on trying, just a little bit. Now run it out of food, a little bit. I ain't lying, just a little bit. Please stay when you're home. What you say?
Please welcome co-founder of the We Act for Environmental Justice, Bernice Miller Travis.
How are we doing, Charm City? So I have the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you all today the wonderful, the magnificent, the extraordinary Vice President Kamala Harris. But before I do, I want to share a little biographical information with you, but also give a few shout outs. And the first shout out is to Administrator Mike Regan, who you just heard from, who is doing some extraordinary work lifting up environmental justice and fighting systemic racism as it impacts environmental policy across these United States. We have never had an administrator that has leaned in as hard as he is leaning in on these issues, and it is a joy and an honor to watch him and the people at the United States Environmental Protection Agency do their work every day. It is a new day. I also want to give a shout out to Senator Van Hollen. I don't know if he mentioned this in his remarks, but you may remember that there's been a struggle going on about the Red Line and the funding for the Red Line in Baltimore City to connect East and West Baltimore, to bring folk to where the businesses are, to where the money is, to where the jobs are. And in that infrastructure bill, Senator Van Hollen and Senator Cardin got a specific write-in in that bill to make sure that the red line is going to come back and the feasibility is going to come back and Baltimore is going to get what it needs. Thank you, Senator. So again, I want to share a little bit about myself. For the past 38 years, I've been working with every fiber of my being to build and grow the movement for environmental justice in the United States and across the world. It's been my life's work, but the seeds of that work were planted in my hometown of Harlem, New York, and the Bronx, the South Bronx, where I went to middle school. Shout out for Harlem, you know it, all day and all night. But also, while frequently visiting my family here in Baltimore City. My mother was born in Baltimore. She lived in Ellicott City for a few years, but she spent her formative years in Baltimore and then moved to Harlem, thank God, so I could be born. But everything that I've ever done is about the inequities that I saw growing up in the 1960s and 70s and the profound difference and differences between what existed in our communities and what existed in neighboring communities. The resources that we didn't have and the resources that other people did have. And I decided that I was going to become an urban planner because I wanted to be a part of the efforts to restore the beauty, vibrancy, vitality, and history of communities like ours. Communities that were full of good people, with good ideas, but not a lot of political or economic support to reinvest in and reimagine what our futures could look like. But we are in a different moment right now. In 2022, the Biden-Harris administration followed the signing into law of the historic Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act with the passage and signage of the Inflation Reduction Act. I believe that these two historic bills and the Targeted Justice 40 initiative, if you don't know what Justice 40 is, take out your phone and Google it now, because it's going to change the game. It's going to change the game. It's this kind of economic and political leadership that we as a nation have waited decades to see enacted. There has not been this level of federal funding for programs and projects and investment and infrastructure and Wi-Fi and clean energy and jobs and schools and healthcare. We have not seen this in our lifetimes. We may not see it again. So we have to lean in and meet this moment. And of course, just as I'm on a roll, I lose my own remarks, right? They're here, trust and believe, they're here. Hold on one second, because I want to say some really wonderful things about the Vice President that I feel so deeply in my soul. Some of you are Black women, as I am in this audience. Some of you are not. But we waited a lifetime to see somebody in this office who looked like us, to see somebody in this office who, like me, is a first-generation American and a child of people from the Caribbean and from South Asia. We waited a lifetime. Some of us could never imagine that this moment would arrive, but here we are, and she's swinging, isn't she? Swinging for the fences. So this year, Vice President Harris has traveled the country meeting with community leaders, students, and environmental advocates to highlight the administration's climate efforts and hear directly from Americans what these investments mean to them. As part of her work to build an economy that works for all, the Vice President has placed a particular focus on community banks, such as community development finance institutions, community finance institutions that give money directly at the community level, right? New moment. Having launched several initiatives focused on maximizing resources for those who are integral to community leaders. We are here today to hear what the Inflation Reduction Act is doing and will continue to do to support cities like Baltimore, who have too long waited to be shown some love from the federal government. Are you hearing me? So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I introduce to you the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Please have a seat. But I'm going to ask you to applaud again for Vernice, please. Can we please? Really? Because, you know, Michael, Regan, and I have talked about this as we travel the country. And there is so much about what we are accomplishing in these last 2 years with the work we have done that really is about answering the calls and no, but I mean that in all seriousness, answering the demands, answering for Vernice over 30 years, and so many other leaders who are here and around our country who have been talking about and shouting about and organizing about and leading about the need for us to take seriously the health and the safety and the well-being of all communities. It is leaders like Vernice who talk about places like Baltimore, who understand the capacity of the community, as well as the needs of the community, as well as the dreams and the desires of the community. So I stand here before you as Vice President of the United States, proud to make the announcements we are making today, which are historic, and I am very clear. I stand here on the shoulders of people like Vernice. And her decades of work and leadership in the fight for environmental justice. So it is good to be back in Baltimore. You know, I'm from Oakland. Baltimore is like home to me. And it is, of course, wonderful to be here with my friend, with my colleague, the EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, who I have to tell you, because he and I have been working very closely, like I said, traveling around the country. He is extraordinary. Vernice talked about it, and you can see when he talks. He is truly committed, and he is bold, and he is relentless, and he is tireless, and he is ambitious about the rights and the responsibilities that we have to respond to the needs of the American people. Michael, it's such a joy to work with you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you. And it is also wonderful to be here with when I was in the Senate, my Senate classmate, Chris Van Hollen. Thank you for your leadership. Chris is always saying, come back to Baltimore, I'm here. Senator Tom Carper, a great, great leader, a great friend to the president, and one of the people who is responsible for being a leader in the state Senate, in our national Senate in the Capitol on this issue, as well as Senator Ed Markey, all the way from Massachusetts here because of the work that he has been doing tirelessly for years and years. He and I talked about a similar announcement that we made together in Boston. Congressman Frank Pallone, where are you? Thank you for your work. There he is. Again, a long way from home, but here because this is about national impact, this work we're doing. And of course, Congressman David Trone, thank you for your leadership in your work. And I also want to mention the governor, Wes Moore. He's out of state at the moment, but he wanted to be here, and he's doing incredible work, and I want to applaud his leadership as well. And I want to thank this audience and all of the folks who are here, if not in person, but because of their work, they are here and present with us. In particular, the students, the activists, the union workers, the elected officials, everyone who is here, the mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers and aunties and uncles and all of the leaders who have participated in a day like today. I want to thank you for your leadership and your partnership in taking on one of the most urgent matters of our time, this climate crisis. So every day, all across our nation, we feel and see the impact of the climate crisis. I mean, if you watch the morning news, it will be the lead story. It's been every day for the last couple of weeks. It is the lead story. I think we finally, at least in our progress, come to the point that most people can no longer deny it because it is so obvious. And we have seen around our country where communities have been choked by drought, have been washed out by floods and decimated by hurricanes. Here in Baltimore, you have seen your skies darkened by wildfire smoke. And you have seen the waters of the Chesapeake Bay rise, threatening homes and businesses that have stood for generations. It is clear that the clock is not only ticking, it is banging, and we must act. As Vice President, as I said, I've traveled across our nation to speak with thousands of Americans about this crisis. I have met with students and entrepreneurs, small business owners, community leaders, nonprofit leaders, labor leaders, folks with new approaches to reduce our emissions and accelerate our clean energy transition. But folks who often do not have access to the funds they need to make their ideas a reality. And that is a problem. For years, one of the missing pieces in our strategy to fight the climate crisis is that we have not invested at scale in community climate action. For years, the people of the community, folks who know what their neighborhood needs and how to provide it, have not been given adequate resources to implement climate solutions that match the magnitude of the crisis we face. And that's why we're here today. And that's why we're here today. Today, I am proud to announce the largest investment in financing for community-based climate projects in our nation's history. Yeah, it's a good day. And one of the reasons that it is so significant is because we also, frankly, we got to make up for some lost time. So by dramatically accelerating our work, we know we can lower emissions. And we will do that by providing $20 billion to a national network of nonprofits, community lenders, and other financial institutions to fund tens of thousands of climate and clean energy projects across America. So here's what that will mean. Okay, so imagine, for example, the construction companies that build affordable housing here in Baltimore. That because of this investment, will now have the capital they need to install energy-efficient appliances in new units, to lower energy use, and to help tenants save on their electric bills. Imagine, for example, the small business owner who will now be able to receive zero interest loans to electrify their fleet of delivery vehicles so we can reduce pollution and save on gas. Imagine, for example, right? Imagine, for example, the house of worship that will now be able to have access to loan guarantees so they can install solar panels on the roof of their building to generate affordable, clean electricity for the entire neighborhood. Imagine. You know, when President Biden and I took office, we set an ambitious goal. Yes, people said, that can't be done. We said, well, you know what? We believe in dreaming with ambition and then seeing it through. And so we set an ambitious goal to cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. The investment we are announcing today will help us to achieve these goals, and it will do so much more. Because think also about the impact on not only the local economy, not only on an investment in the entrepreneurs and innovators from and in the community, think about the impact on something like public health. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Think of the impact on family budgets. When we help folks upgrade their heating and cooling systems, we lower the cost of electricity, which means lower energy bills for working parents, so they have more money for groceries and home repairs and school supplies. And think of all the jobs that these investments will create, including many good-paying union jobs. Jobs, for example, for the workers of IBEW who will install energy-efficient lighting. Jobs for the sheet metal workers who will replace gas furnaces with electric heat pumps. Jobs for the laborers who will build net zero housing. Right. So understand, when the president and I invest in climate, we intend to invest in jobs, invest in families, and invest in America. And this investment is also about a partnership with the private sector. You know, my whole career, I have believed in the power of public-private partnerships. I've seen how much more we can accomplish when we combine the experience and expertise of the private sector with the reach and the scale that only government can provide. And as the business leaders here today can confirm, this investment is an incentive, this public investment is an incentive by design for billions more dollars from the private sector. And in all this work, we have put a special focus on communities that have been historically left out and left behind. The climate crisis impacts everybody, but it does not impact all communities equally. Poor communities, rural communities, Native communities, and communities of color are often the hardest hit and the least able to recover. So let's be clear about that. The least in terms of where investments have been made in mitigation and adaptation, the hardest hit, and the least able to recover. So to address this inequity, nearly $12 billion of this funding we're announcing today will be invested in overlooked communities. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's time. It's time. It's time. So including in this vision of how we think of the best way and the fastest and most effective way to get the resources to the community, we are working specifically and intentionally with community banks. Why? Well, because everyone here probably knows community banks, by their nature, are run by people who live and work in the community. People who know firsthand the incredible potential in the place they themselves call home. They not only know the needs of the community, they know the capacity of the community, they know the dreams of the community, they know the ambitions of the community. And that's the kind of vehicle we need to actually think about how we will get these billions of dollars to the folks who know what to do with it. As a United States Senator, I helped secure $12 billion for community banks, and as Vice President, I have made community banks central to our economic agenda. And because of the unique role that community banks can play in addressing the climate crisis. We made sure that they are eligible for the funds that we are announcing today in a significant way, so that more small businesses around our country have opportunity to join the clean energy economy. And so I'll close with this. Last month, I met with a group of young climate activists in Colorado. And it was a group of high schoolers who organized thousands of students. And they made Denver Public Schools one of the first school districts in our nation to adopt a climate action plan. These young leaders were phenomenal. And they were bold, and they were not listening to no. And look, I like to say I eat no for breakfast, so I get it, right? And these young leaders, of course, like all the young leaders who are here and the youngish leaders who are here, we know we don't have time to waste. They knew that. And so they weren't sitting around waiting for somebody else to get it done. They led, understanding the profound challenges that we face. And yet, I will tell you about them. They had incredible hope and optimism and joy about what is possible in the work that is being done. And I do believe it's because they, like we, know that we have time to make a difference, but we got to get on with it. And so let us share their hope and recognize that when we work together, when we invest in our communities, when we take action, we will meet this moment and build a better, cleaner, healthier future for generations to come. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.